Number 1. Pali Highway. It cuts through the green cliffs of the island. By day, it carries workers, families, and tourists between the city and the windward side. But local drivers still repeat one warning before crossing the high pass. Do not carry pork across the mountain pass. The story sounds small until a car stalls in mist, with no clear reason. The old legend says the fire goddess and a powerful pig spirit once divided the island after a bitter struggle. Pork became a sign of that spirit, and carrying it across the boundary was like dragging an old quarrel into forbidden ground. Some drivers say the engine dies, the lights fade, or an old woman appears with a dog waiting quietly near the road. History gives the place an even deeper weight. These cliffs were part of a major battle in 1795, when the king fought to unite the islands. Warriors were driven toward the cliffs, and the wind there still feels like it is rushing through that day. So the pork legend is not just a joke. It belongs to a road marked by power, war, and respect. That is why it feels different after sunset. The city lights shrink behind you, the mountains close in, and the car seems smaller than it did before. Maybe a stalled engine is only bad luck. Number 2. Saddle Road. The road crosses the Big Island between two giant volcanoes. The route was first built during World War II as a military access road, and for years it had a rough, lonely reputation. Even today, after modern improvements, the high, open land can feel empty enough to swallow sound. At dusk, it still seems to float above the island. This is where people tell of fireballs in the sky. Some describe them as red or white lights sliding low over the brush, then rising like sparks from unseen hands. Others say they hover in place, too steady for a meteor and too strange for headlights. Drivers slow down, stare through the windshield, and wonder whether the mountain is sending a warning. The stories became stronger in the 1950s when fireball reports were linked in local memory to volcanic unrest in the Eastern District. The great 1955 eruption lasted for weeks, opened many vents, damaged roads, and sent lava through settled land. To scientists, eruptions are tracked through quakes, cracks, and gas. To many families, the lights were the older language of the island. That mix of history and legend is what makes the road so powerful. It is not a crowded ghost tour road. It is a quiet crossing between mountains that shaped everything below. When a glow moves across the dark plain, the driver feels both wonder and caution. The road keeps going, but for a moment, the island seems to look back. Number 3. Pali Drive. This drive winds through one of the island's greenest valleys, where old trees lean over the pavement. The road carried traffic before the modern highway took over, and its sharpest bend became known as Morgan's Corner. In daylight, it can look peaceful. At night, drivers say a white figure sometimes enters a car without a door opening. The bend took its name from a doctor named James Morgan, whose home stood near the bend in the 1920s. But the road's darker fame grew after March 11th, 1948, when Therese Wilder was attacked in her nearby home by two escaped prisoners. The crime frightened the nearby city and helped stir long public arguments about punishment, justice, and what fear can do to a community. Over time, the real tragedy mixed with older valley legends. People reported cold spots, whispers, and the feeling of someone sitting in the back seat. Some speak of a silent woman in white. Others warn of a face appearing in the mirror just after the curve. The details change, but the setting always stays the same. Wet leaves, narrow pavement, and a turn that feels too tight. That is why the famous corner remains one of the island's best-known road hauntings. It is not scary only because of ghosts. It is scary because a real place with real names and real sorrow became a doorway for rumor. Number 4. Road to Hana. This famous road begins like a promise. Ocean on one side, jungle on the other, and water hidden behind trees. Yet this famous island drive is not a simple beach road. It is about 52 miles from the main town to the eastern coast, with 620 curves and 59 bridges. Many are narrow, and several are only one lane. So every mile asks drivers to slow down and pay attention. Because the trip moves through old valleys, waterfalls, and quiet coastal settlements, the road has gathered stories for generations. Travelers speak of a sudden heavy silence inside the car, even with the windows open. A laugh stops, the radio fades. Then someone feels watched from the thick leaves, as if the forest noticed them before they noticed it. The history underneath the pavement makes that feeling stronger. Long before rental cars and guidebooks, families lived and traveled along these eastern lands. Old footpaths, farming areas, burial places, and temple sites once tied the coastline together. The modern highway opened the view to visitors, but it did not erase the older world beneath the green. So the haunting of this road is not a ghost with one name. It is the feeling that the road is still shared. A bridge creaks, rain slides across the windshield, and the next curve appears before the last one is finished. Number 5. Tantalus Drive. This drive climbs above the city in tight loops, trading city noise for mist, trees, and coast views. The road began as a rough mountain route in the 1890s, later joined with Round Top Drive, and was paved in the 1930s. By daylight, it is one of the island's great scenic drives. After dark, the same curves can feel like they are calling drivers deeper uphill. The old stories speak of voices near the drop-offs. Some still hear their name called from the brush. Others see a pale shape standing near a bend, gone by the time headlights reach it. The legend warns people not to follow sounds into the trees, because the mountain is steep, the road is narrow, and one wrong step can become a real danger. The mountain road also carries a modern sorrow. In January 1982, 19-year-old Lisa Au disappeared during a stormy night on the island. Her car was later found abandoned, and days afterward she was found near the mountain road. No one was ever convicted. The case troubled the island for years, partly because people wondered how a familiar road could hide such a hard secret. That is why the ghost stories here feel heavier than simple campfire tales. The mountain road has beauty, history, and a silence that changes after sunset. Number 6. Tunnel of Trees. The tree tunnel on the island begins as a green doorway. It runs along the main road, the route many people take toward the south coast. In 1911, Walter McBride, a sugar and pineapple businessman, gave hundreds of eucalyptus trees to the community. More than a century later, their trunks still rise like columns, turning the road into shade. The haunting here is gentle but strange. Late drivers say the air under the canopy feels colder, even when the day has been warm. Some hear soft taps against the car, as if fingers brush the doors. Others see lights far ahead that never get closer, then blink out between the trees. No one jumps from the shadows. The road simply seems to notice you. The trees have lived through real damage too. A powerful hurricane struck the island in 1992 and tore through the island with terrible force, ripping branches and breaking parts of the canopy. Yet the tunnel slowly grew back. That survival became part of its mood. It is beautiful, but it also carries the memory of plantation days, storms, workers, and passing cars. So the tree tunnel feels less like a monster story and more like a threshold. Number 7. Kappa Quarry Road. This road sits away from the postcard shine of the island. During the day, it looks like a practical back road, with brush, work yards, wetlands, and rough edges. At night, it changes. The lanes feel narrow, the trees crowd the shoulders, and the dark patches between streetlights seem deep enough to hide someone waiting. That is where the vanishing hitchhiker stories begin. Drivers tell of a wet, tired figure standing near the road, sometimes close to the marshy ground. The passenger gives a short direction, sits quietly in the back seat, then disappears before the car reaches the next turn. When the driver looks again, there is no open door, no sound, and no footprints. Older folklore adds another layer. In island tradition, old island stories describe small hidden people known as builders and tricksters, tied to remote valleys, fish ponds, and places away from crowds. Around this back road, some stories say they stretch the road, confuse headlights, or make a driver feel as if the same bend has appeared twice in a row. The road's real danger keeps the legend grounded. Sharp turns, poor visibility, and fast driving have made it frightening without any ghost at all. That may be why the stories stay. A lonely road already teaches respect. Add a silent passenger who vanishes behind you, and every mirror becomes important. Number 8. Kalaupapa Bypass Road. On the island, the roads near the isolated settlement carry a history heavier than most places in Hawaii. Beginning in the 1860s, people with Hansen's disease were sent to this isolated peninsula, cut off by ocean on one side and high cliffs on the other. Families were separated, homes were left behind, and a quiet settlement grew from sorrow and courage. One local ghost story centers on a grove marked by a ilang-ilang tree between the old and newer settlements. People said a figure floated near the road ruts, solid from the shoulders up, but fading below. The story grew so strong that drivers prefer to bypass rather than pass the haunted spot at night. Even a trained mule was said to refuse the grove. The legend matters because animals and residents often knew the land better than outsiders. The settlement was never just a sad place. It was also a community where patients built churches, cared for one another, farmed, worked, and made lives under rules they did not choose. Father Damien arrived in 1873, adding a real name to a place often reduced to rumor and fog. This road does not ask visitors to be thrilled. It asks them to be careful. The ghost near the tree may be a memory, a warning, or only a shadow made by moonlight. But in this place, even shadows deserve respect. The road bends around the grove, and the story bends around grief that never fully leaves. Number 9. Highway 1/H1. H1 is the busy spine of the island, carrying cars past Pearl Harbor, Honolulu, neighborhoods, shops, and airport traffic. The island's interstate routes were approved after statehood, and H1 grew from older freeway plans in the 1950s and 1960s. Most drivers know it for traffic, not ghosts. But on the island, modern roads often cross land with older memory. The tunnel haunting people connect to this route is often told with the mountain highways that link back toward H1. Workers on the island's road projects spoke of uneasy valleys, old burials, and voices near places where the mountains had to be cut. The H3 freeway, opened in 1997 after decades of argument, became controversial for crossing sacred ground. That history changed the way people heard the tunnels. A drip of water became a whisper. Air rushing through concrete sounded like marching. Some said they heard warriors crying from the dark, not angry at every driver, but present where machines had entered the mountain. Whether the sounds were spirits, the fear came from a question: can a road cut through memory? The danger is not a lonely forest, but the speed of life. Thousands pass without thinking about what lies beneath the lanes. Then a tunnel grows quiet for 1 second, and the driver feels small inside the concrete. The road moves forward, but the island seems to ask who paid the price. Number 10. Waipio Valley Access Road. The road into the remote valley drops from the lookout like a line drawn down a cliff. It is short, steep, and demanding, with sections so sharp that only experienced local drivers and four-wheel drive vehicles belong there. Visitors know the valley for its beauty, but history gives it a deeper name: the Valley of the Kings. For centuries, the valley was a political and spiritual center on the Big Island. The future king spent part of his youth connected to this region, and many chiefs lived or ruled from the valley. Farm fields, waterfalls, and old paths made it rich and protected. When night comes, that royal past is the reason people speak of drums echoing from the valley floor. The drums are linked to the night marchers, the ghostly guards of high chiefs. In the stories, they travel old routes with torches, chants, and steady steps. On the steep road, a driver may hear the beat before seeing anything at all. The sound rises from below, rolls between the cliffs and makes the steep pavement feel like the edge of another world. The real road has its own warnings too. Rockfalls, landslides, and safety concerns have closed or limited access in recent years, reminding everyone that the valley cannot be treated like an easy stop. Number 11. Botanical Garden Roads. It sits in the center of the island, where rain and shade make the air feel cooler than the coast. The Botanical Garden Roads curve around a deep green ravine, now a 27-acre forest garden. Its roots go back to the sugar planters, who used the land as an experimental arboretum before it became a public garden. That quiet history is why the Green Lady feels tied to the place. In the most common story, she was once a mother walking near the gulch when one of her children disappeared. She searched through rain, mud, and thick leaves until grief changed her into something people still fear. Drivers and walkers later described a green figure moving near the road. Parents used the legend as a warning, but it also fits the real landscape. The ravine is beautiful, yet it drops away fast, and the plants grow thick enough to hide the ground. A child who wandered from the path could be lost from sight in seconds. Over time, that practical lesson became a ghost with wet hair, mossy skin, and eyes fixed on the shadows. So the roads near the botanical garden do not need screaming to feel haunted. They only need rain on leaves and a turn where the trees close overhead. The Green Lady may be a spirit, a warning, or a mother-shaped memory of the gulch itself. Number 12. La Perouse Bay, Coastal Paths. At the far end of the road on the island's south coast, this remote bay feels like the island has changed its voice. The green slopes give way to black lava, sharp rocks, and bright ocean. The bay was named after a French explorer who reached the island in 1786. But the land was old long before any foreign ship saw it. The coastal paths here cross some of the youngest lava on the island. Scientists once thought the flow came from about 1790, but newer studies point much earlier, between about 1480 and 1600. That makes the stone feel ancient and recent at the same time. It is young enough for the island to remember, but old enough to carry centuries of footsteps. This is why night marcher stories fit so naturally along the shore. People speak of distant drumming, torch-like lights, and the sound of shells on the wind. In the dark, the broken lava can make every step sound like someone walking behind you. Then the ocean pulls back, the air stills, and the path feels as if another procession has claimed it. This remote bay is not a place that invites careless wandering after sunset. Its beauty is rough, bright, and serious. The legend does not turn the coast into a monster. It gives the coast a boundary. When the rocks glow under moonlight, and the sea breathes through the cracks, it feels wise to leave the old road to those who walked it first. Number 13. Cana Point Paths. This remote point is the western tip of the island, where the road gives up and the rest must be done on foot. The land feels open and exposed, with ocean on two sides and wind coming hard across the lava shore. Today it is known for native birds, monk seals, and a wild coastline, but its older meaning is much deeper than scenery. For generations, island families regarded this point as a sacred place where souls left the living world. Stories say the spirits of the newly dead traveled west, reached the edge of land, and leaped into the next realm to meet their ancestors. That belief makes every path here feel like more than a hiking trail. It is a border between this life and the unseen. Night marcher stories also gather at this coastal point. Hikers have reported drums, low chanting, and torch-like lights moving where no group should be walking. Some say the processions escort souls. Others say the warrior spirits protect the route. Either way, the message is the same. The living should not stand in the way when the old passage opens. In daylight, the sea is blue, the birds call, and the trail feels wide. At dusk, the western sky burns down, and the land seems to face another world. A person can still explain the lights and sounds as wind, waves, or tired eyes. But out there, at the edge of the island, even doubt speaks softly. Number 14. Hauntedplaces Town Roads. This is one of the island's old towns, tucked near the river on the island's west side. Unlike many towns shaped mainly by sugar plantations, the town grew with its own strong identity. In 1840, the United States exploring expedition visited the area, and by the early 1900s, the town had become a busy place of stores, bridges, workers, and families. Its famous swinging bridge adds to the mood. Built around 1911, it helped people cross the local river toward fields and homes on the other side. A powerful hurricane damaged it in 1992, but the bridge was restored, and the town kept its old look. That mix of survival and age gives the town a feeling that the past is still close to the street. After dark, the roads collect a different kind of story. People tell of night marchers passing through town, not far away in a valley, but near streets where shops and homes stand. The sound may begin as a low rhythm, then grow into voices that seem to press against the walls. For a moment, the modern town feels covered by an older map. That is what makes the town's haunting special. It is not only a lonely road or a hidden trail. It is a living town where art nights, families, and history share space with legend. Number 15. Snake Road. Snake Road twists between the center of the island and the north shore, earning the nickname Snake Road. It is narrow in places, dark at night, and easy to misjudge after rain, especially between army land and country fields. Even without a ghost, the drive asks for care. In recent years, state officials added speed control work after a record of crashes there. The legend says a bride was late for her wedding at an old church, and a priest drove her through the curves too fast. Near one bend, the car lost control, and the wedding became a roadside ghost story. Since then, drivers have spoken of a woman in white near the shoulder, sometimes with a priest beside her, asking for a ride that never reaches its end. The details shift with each teller, Some say she appears in the mirror. Others say a seatbelt warning or crash alert sounds when no one else is there. The fear works because the road already has real danger built into it. Headlights sweep trees, wet pavement shines like glass, and every curve hides what is next. So Snake Road is a place where folklore and safety point in the same direction. Slow down, watch the shoulders, respect the dark. Maybe the white figure is only mist lifting from the fields, and maybe the old wedding story grew from ordinary accidents. Number 16. Hokunui Paths. These paths cross one of the quietest parts of the island, where red dust rises from old roads and the wind seems louder than traffic. The island was lived on long before plantations arrived, with fishing villages, stone sites, and trails that connected shore, upland, and dry country. Here distance still feels powerful after sunset too. The legend says that after dark, footsteps sometimes follow these paths with no person in sight. Travelers hear a slow march in the dust, then a pause, as if unseen men have stopped to listen. Some say the sounds belong to old warriors still guarding roots that once mattered to chiefs, fishermen, and families moving across the island. History gives a story its shape. The island later became famous for pineapple, especially after large plantation work began in 1922. But older ancient villages show a much deeper past. That ancient village, occupied since at least the 1400s, held homes, religious sites, petroglyphs, and a place of refuge visited by important Hawaiian leaders. There are no bright hotel lights, no crowded sidewalks, and no easy noise to explain every sound. Only dust, dry grass, and a path that keeps its own rhythm. When footsteps seem to rise behind a walker, the island does not feel empty. It feels protected, as if the old road still knows who belongs there now. Number 17. Makaha Valley Plantation Paths. This western valley lies on the west side of the island, where the mountains rise steep and dry above the coast. Old plantation paths and rural roads cut through land that feels far from the city, even on the same island. In daylight, the valley is bright and open to the sea. At night, the ridges turn black, and every sound seems to carry farther. The haunting here belongs to the night marchers. Residents have long told of drums moving through the valley, followed by points of torchlight that appear between trees and vanish near the slopes. Sometimes the sound comes first, a steady beat that does not match any car, party, or radio. Then the air feels crowded, as if a line is passing. The legend fits the valley because the island's western side holds many old trails, caves, and sacred places. Before modern roads, these routes connected shore communities with upland areas and carried food, news, and power. Later plantation life added workers, fences, and fields, but it did not erase the older paths. The land kept both histories. That is why people speak carefully about the valley after dark. The story is not about a ghost trying to scare strangers for fun. It is about guards still walking a route they were ordered to protect. Number 18. Old Saddle Road. Old Saddle Road once felt much rougher than the modern route across the island. Built first as a wartime military road in the 1940s, it crossed high lava country between two giant volcanoes, far from towns and fuel stops. At night, the sky opened wide above it, and the land on both sides looked unfinished. One of its best-known ghost stories came from the Macumber family on January 31st, 1955. They reported strange lights on the road, then something unseen pressing against their truck and tapping on the roof. The fear did not end when they reached home. In the story, a force held two family members inside the vehicle until salt was thrown into the truck. The timing made the tale even stronger. That same year, a major eruption began in the Eastern District, and many island residents connected ghost lights and fireballs with volcanic warning signs. Some believed the spirits were angry because trees had been cut and land disturbed. Others thought the lights were part of the volcano goddess's world, moving before lava returned. The old road is quieter now, but the story still rides with it. A lonely road, a frightened family, salt in the dark, and a mountain landscape that never feels fully asleep. Maybe the tapping was wind, metal, or panic after a long drive. Number 19. Pearl Harbor Access Roads. The roads into the harbor do not feel haunted in the usual way. They pass gates, docks, memorial signs, and water that looks calm under the sun, especially near the memorial. Yet everyone who enters is moving across a place changed forever on December 7th, 1941, when Japanese aircraft attacked and the United States was pulled into World War II. The legends here speak of soldiers seen near the docks, a woman waiting for a man who never came home, and footsteps along quiet access roads after visiting hours near the shore. Some guards and visitors have described a sudden sadness that arrives without warning. It is not a jump scare. It feels more like grief standing beside the road. History explains why the stories are treated with care. More than 2,300 American service members were killed that day, and 1,177 died aboard the USS Arizona alone. Ships burned, planes were destroyed, and families across the country learned names they would never hear at the dinner table again. The harbor became a memory carved into water. So the access roads should never be treated like a place for thrill-seeking. If a figure seems to stand near the harbor lights, the right feeling is respect, not excitement. Some hauntings are not about fear at all. They are about remembering lives interrupted in one morning. Number 20. Kalawao Trail. This remote settlement is tied to one of the hardest chapters in Hawaii's history. In 1866, the first people with Hansen's disease were sent to the remote north shore of the island, separated by sea cliffs and ocean. The early settlement was on the isolated coast itself, where help was limited, supplies were thin, and many families never saw each other again. The trail carries a local story about the remains of an old house from the 1870s. Friends had built it for a patient, trying to give one person a little safety in a place filled with loss. But the story says jealousy and violence ended that kindness, and the ground around the house kept the sorrow. Visitors later felt heaviness near the site. Real history makes the legend even more painful. Father Damien arrived in 1873 and worked to improve homes, churches, care, and dignity for the people forced to live there. The two settlements were not just places of sickness. They were communities where people worshipped, married, worked, planted gardens, and tried to build normal days. That is why the haunting on this old trail is quiet. It is not the kind that asks for screams. It asks for silence. A fallen wall, a patch of grass, and a sudden weight in the chest can say more than a loud ghost ever could. Number 21. Waikiki/Hilton Hawaiian Village Roads. The roads around the famous beach district look too bright for ghost stories. Buses pass, music drifts from hotels, and visitors walk toward the beach with towels over their shoulders. Yet the large hotel district sits on land with a much older past. Before the towers, this shoreline was part of an older coastal district, close to ponds, streams, and royal waters. The modern hotel story began with a small hotel opened in 1928. In 1954, Henry Kaiser and Fritz Burns bought the property, and by 1955 they were building the large resort with cottages, gardens, pools, and showrooms. The place became famous for color, crowds, and entertainment. Still, staff stories tell of a woman in red moving where no guest should be. Many connect her to the fire goddess, who is said to test people while wearing a human face. In some accounts, she crosses a hallway or beach path, looks directly at a worker or traveler, then vanishes before anyone can speak. In 1959, one employee story described a young woman disappearing in a blink, leaving only shock behind her. That is what makes this road haunting so unusual. It is not hidden in a forest or locked behind an old gate. It walks through one of the busiest places in Hawaii. Neon signs shine, the sea keeps moving, and the hotel doors open and close. Then a red dress slips past the corner, and the beach district feels older than every tower around it. Number 22. Pohoiki Road. It runs through the Eastern District, a district where the Big Island reminds everyone that the ground is alive. Forest, lava, coast, and small communities all sit within reach of an active volcanic rift zone. A road here is never just pavement. It is a line drawn over land that can crack, steam, and change the map in a single season. The legend speaks of glowing orbs and fireballs drifting above the brush. Some witnesses call them spirit lights. Others see them as warnings from the land before fire returns from below. Local accounts name Richard Lyman and Lily Torrey among those who noticed strange lights connected in memory to volcanic unrest. The lights seem to move with purpose, then vanish. The history behind that fear is real. On February 28, 1955, lava broke out near the main coastal road. Fountains rose, cracks opened, roads were cut, and families near a coastal community had to evacuate. The eruption continued for weeks across the lower district. Science explains the quakes and fissures, but legend explains why people watch the dark sky with worry. That is why this road feels haunted without needing a single walking ghost. A small light in the trees can become a message. A warm wind can feel like breath from the island itself. When drivers see a glow over the brush, they may keep both hands still on the wheel. In this district, the road is not dead ground. It is a living warning. Number 23, Hawaii Plantation Village Paths. This plantation village museum is built to remember the sugar plantation era from about 1850 to 1950. The outdoor museum opened in 1992 and uses restored buildings, replicas, tools, rooms, and everyday objects to show how workers and families lived. Its paths look simple, but they carry many countries, languages, and hard lives in one place. Laborers came from Hawaiian, Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Korean, Okinawan, Portuguese, Puerto Rican, and other communities. They cut cane, washed clothes, raised children, shared food, and worked under strict plantation rules. The houses were small, the hours were long, and the people often gave more to the islands than history books remembered. That is why the ghost stories here feel personal. Visitors speak of children crying in empty rooms, footsteps on porches, and light touches where no guide is standing. Some say at least half the houses feel active, but the haunting is not cruel. It feels like a village full of people who still want their ordinary days to be seen. Walking these paths is like moving through a memory built from wood, dust, and family stories. A door creaks, a curtain shifts, and a tiny room suddenly feels full. Maybe it is only the wind passing through old boards. But at Hawaii Plantation Village, the past does not feel buried. Number 24, Town Roads. It is the main town of the island, quiet enough that a visitor may notice how little rush there is. The main street was named for a nearby house used by a Hawaiian king in the 1860s. Shops, bakeries, harbor views, and island errands give the town a calm rhythm that feels very different from larger Hawaiian cities. Yet local legends say the town roads are spiritually busy after dark. In many night marcher stories, the old processions stay in valleys or along coast trails. In the town, people say they may pass near the heart of town itself. First comes a faint drum, then chanting seems to move between buildings, soft at first, then close. History helps the story feel possible. The island has long been known for deep respect toward older ways, family lines, and sacred places. The town also grew around harbor life, trade, and travel, with roads laid over land that already had older paths. A modern street can follow a route much older than the buildings beside it. That is why it feels different at night. It is not frightening because it is loud or ruined. It is frightening because it is peaceful, and the peace lets small sounds travel. When the last bakery light goes out and the road lies empty, a drum beat in the distance feels impossible to ignore. The town sleeps, but the old procession may still be walking. Number 25, Nuanupali, Lookout Access. The access road to the cliffside lookout climbs toward one of the island's strongest views. Wind rushes over the cliffs, clouds move fast, and the island opens below in green ridges and blue water. Tourists come for photos. But the lookout is more than scenery. It is tied to one of the most important battles in Hawaiian history. In May 1795, the island king fought a major battle during his campaign to unite the islands. His forces pushed the island's defenders up the valley toward the steep cliffs. Many warriors were trapped between weapons behind them and the drop ahead. Historical estimates say hundreds died at or near the high cliffs. That is why people report shadows on the access road after dark. Some see forms moving against the wind, as if men are still climbing toward the last edge. Others hear cries or the pound of feet that vanish when cars stop. The stories are not random. They rise from a place where a real battle ended with fear, loss, and a new future for Hawaii. Number 26, Mackenzie State Park Trails. The coastal park sits on the rugged eastern coast where ironwood trees bend over black lava cliffs and the ocean hits hard below. The park is about 13 acres, but it feels larger in the wind. It was named for a young forest ranger. A young forest ranger remembered for planting trees to protect the shoreline from erosion. The trails are also tied to the old coastal route, often called the King's Trail. Long before park signs and picnic tables, people traveled these rough lava paths between communities, fishing spots, and sacred places. At night, local stories say the old road still belongs to the night marchers, the spirit guards who move with drums and steady feet. Visitors have reported chanting near the trees, heavy steps on empty paths, and the feeling that a line of people is passing just out of sight. The ironwoods make the stories stronger. Their thin branches scrape together in the wind, sounding almost like whispers. A camper can wake in the dark and believe the whole grove is breathing. That is why Mackenzie is beautiful, but never simple. The cliffs are dangerous, the sea is powerful, and the history beneath the trail feels older than the park itself. When the wind rises and the path seems to fill with unseen footsteps, the wisest traveler does not challenge the sound. They step away from the old road and let the night keep walking on. Number 27, Old Poly Road. The old mountain road is no longer the main way across the cliffs, but that is part of its power. Pieces of the former road now sit quiet under trees, beside stone walls, wet leaves, and mountain wind. Modern traffic rushes through newer routes nearby, yet this older path feels as if it slipped out of time and kept the silence for itself. The road's deepest shadow comes from the major battle in 1795. The island king fought to bring the island under his rule, and the battle ended near the high cliffs. Warriors were pushed toward the edge, and many died there. More than a century later, during late 1800s road work, workers reportedly found hundreds of skulls near the base of the cliffs. That discovery changed the way people imagined the road. A closed path became a battlefield path. Hikers speak of cold air, sudden sadness, and the sound of movement in places where no one is walking. The cliffs above seem to press down, and the wind can feel like voices coming from far below rather than from the sky. The old mountain road is not haunted because it is abandoned. It is haunted because it remembers a turning point in Hawaiian history. A person can walk there for exercise, but the road asks for more than that. It asks for quiet steps, low voices, and a little humility. Even in daylight, the hush feels earned. The old cracked pavement ends, but the story beneath it never really does now. Number 28, Volcano House, Hotel Entry Road. The entry road to Volcano House leads into the National Volcano Park, where the air cools and the ground feels alive. The hotel has stood in different forms near the summit of the active volcano since 1846, when Benjamin Pittman built a thatched shelter for visitors. Each version has faced the same power, volcano itself. The legend says an old woman sometimes appears near the hotel or along the entry, moving slowly as if she has always belonged there. Others speak of a small white dog that appears at the doorway or near the road, then vanishes before anyone can follow. Many connect both figures to the fire spirit of the volcano. History makes the legend easy to understand. Early travelers came by hard trails and rough roads to stare into the crater, especially when the crater glowed with lava. The hotel changed through the years, burned in 1940, and was rebuilt nearby in 1941. Still, visitors kept returning, drawn by fear, wonder, and the feeling of being watched by the mountain. That is why the entry road feels different from an ordinary hotel driveway. It does not simply lead to rooms and dinner. It leads to one of the world's most active volcanic landscapes, where science and story have always stood side by side. If a white dog crosses the headlights and disappears, the night seems to say, "Enter gently and remember whose home this is." Number 29, International Airport Entry. The road into the airport is full of motion. Cars unload bags, shuttles circle, and travelers hurry toward arrivals and departures. But the airport's history reaches back to March 21st, 1927, when it opened as John Rogers Airport, the island's first full airport. Millions have come and gone through this edge of the city. Airports collect emotion in a special way. They hold reunions, goodbyes, fear of flying, and last looks through windows. That is why the lady-in-waiting story has stayed around the terminals and entry roads. She is said to search the arrivals area for someone who never returns. World War II added another layer. After the Pearl Harbor attack, civilian flying changed, and the field became part of the island's military world before returning to civilian use in 1946. Later, it grew into a major Pacific gateway and was renamed for a longtime United States Senator in 2017. The airport kept changing, but the feeling of waiting never left. So this haunting fits the place perfectly. A ghost at an airport is not trapped in a ruined house. She is trapped in a question. Did he land? Did he leave? Did she miss him forever? Number 30, Yao Theater Roadways. The roads around the old theater run through a historic town where storefronts, old buildings, and mountain clouds sit close together. The theater opened on August 22, 1928, with movie screens, live performances, and a proud place in the island's public life. For nearly a century, people have entered those doors to laugh, sing, and forget the world outside. The ghost stories here are softer than many road legends. People report shadowy figures near the lower levels, voices when no actor is speaking, and movement along the nearby streets after a show has ended. Some say the spirits are not angry. They feel like late guests who still enjoy the stage lights and the sound of applause. Yet the town also stands near older history. The nearby valley, only a short distance inland, was the site of a major battle in 1790, when the invading king's forces fought the island's army during the struggle to unite the islands. That memory gives the region a serious undertone beneath its theater signs and evening traffic. That is why the roadways near the old theater feel layered. One story belongs to music, actors, and glowing marquees. Another belongs to the valley winds and the old fight that changed the island's future. When the street grows quiet after the audience leaves, an extra voice in the dark does not always feel frightening.
If you enjoy this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.